Okay, a couple of things here to get us started. As you all know, we had a very thorough hearing yesterday on Senate Bill 1. I think it was about 5 hours, so thank you all for that, and lots of participation from the community as well. One thing I want to clear up, because there was some confusion, and I created probably some of that confusion, and that has to do with the amendment that we added. We added 2 amendments, as you recall. One amendment from Senator Foyle had kind of some language in it. The other amendment from Senator Reese was actually changing up Vernon Parish, LaSalle, and Grant parishes. So that amendment, we've done it both ways in this committee on redistricting bills. In some cases, amendments are affecting nearly every district. And so the amendment ends up being kind of the new bill because we're restating every district that was affected. In this case, only districts 3 and 4 were affected. And so the amendment addressed districts 3 and 4 and replaced the old District 3 and 4 description in the original bill. And so for those of you in the public that are trying to follow along with us, those amendments, both amendments are online and you can see those. So to see districts 3 and 4, you have to read the amendment. To see the other 4 districts, you read the original bill. Okay? So that I just wanted to clarify that because there was some confusion about all that yesterday. The other thing that I'd like to point out, and members, you have the bill in your folder and the amendments. We also picked up a fiscal note. It has zeros, but the consideration or the idea was that any work that the Secretary of State has done so far in preparing for an election under the maps that we passed, or the map that we passed several months ago, the enacted bill. Any of that work that he had already done or expense that he had gone through, should we enact a different map, there would be perhaps some new expenses as a result of that. And when you read the fiscal note, you'll see that that was sort of a statement by the fiscal office. They don't have any information from the Secretary of State's office as to exactly what those dollars would be. So there's a little bit of arm waving in the description and zeros because we don't have exact numbers, but the anticipation was that there would be some expenses, although I don't know that I don't know how much they would be or how significant they might be. So that fiscal note, I think you'll see, is on every bill, Senate Bill 1, 2, and 3. But I just wanted to kind of point that out. That's something new since yesterday. Okay. So yesterday we spent a good bit of the time talking about communities of interest and how those were represented or perhaps interrupted, depending on whose view you had, interrupted as the map, Senate Bill 1 map, is being proposed. And so I'd like to kind of further explore that a little bit, Senator, and talk about kind of the reasons in some very specific areas, the reasons why the map was drawn the way it was and the redistricting principle that was used in that particular area. And to help us kind of with that conversation, I had Bill kind of create a map for me, if you would pull that up. And I'm mostly interested, again, in what I see as kind of the fingers, I'll call them, for lack of a better word. And so this map, and my eyes aren't quite as good as they used to be. If I was up close to the screen, I would blow that up. But Bill, talk about the legend. How about just read through the legend for us so we'll understand what all the color coding means?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman.
I guess introduce yourself.
My name's Dr. William Blair, the legislative demographer, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
For simplicity, this map color codes the Louisiana database of precincts we use to redistrict into 4 categories of 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and 75 plus percent voting age population Black from our data. So the darker the color, the higher the percentage voting age African American.
Okay. All right, so everybody kind of understands the color code. So, for example, one big thing that jumps out is down in Plaquemine on the East Bank, which actually is part of my district. The East Bank of Plaquemine is dark blue or navy. So that is, according to our database, all of those precincts that you have shaded are in the 75 to 100% black voting age population.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so let's start out just, by way of example. Let's go up to Ouachita Parish. And we had some discussion about that yesterday in terms of communities of interest. I can find it on my other map. Okay, so we had some discussion yesterday about communities of interest, and the observation was that, we pulled out parts of Monroe and West Monroe into Congressional District 5, left some of it, the West Monroe area and some of that, in Congressional District 4. And so we did get some input from folks from the public that came and spoke about perhaps in their opinion, it was disrupting they saw themselves as a community of interest and that was disruptive. And so I wanted to go back then and ask, I think, this is the map again in that area that shows that finger, I'll call it for lack of a better word, in the Monroe area, how it takes in Congressional District 5. So Senator Fields, tell me what then was the logic, was race the primary reason why, that was pulled into Congressional District 5?
Madam Chairman, first of all, thank you very much for having me for a second time. And let me thank the members of the committee for discussing this plan for a third time for 5 hours yesterday. With all due respect, Madam President, as you know, we under a court order.
Chairwoman.
I'm sorry,
okay.
You're right. Look, we're all tired. I'm calling you President now, Madam Chairwoman. Look, if any member of this committee is not satisfied with this map, I'm going to just ask you to offer an amendment. I'm not going to sit here for another 5 hours and go precinct to precinct. I sat here yesterday to do that. And I thought the purpose of today was to give the public an opportunity to review the amendments, and then we would vote the map up or down today. I'm here today to take a vote on the map. If you don't like it, vote it down. I'm just tired of all of these delays, with all due respect. If you don't like the way Monroe is shaped, amend it. If you don't like the way the North Shore is shaped, amend it. Let's not get tied up in the analysis of the paralysis. We all know why we're here. I've explained this map over and over and over again, and I'm not going to explain it anymore. So with all due respect, and look, you all my colleagues, I love each of you, but I'm not going to sit here and do a dog and pony show over and over again. And that's what respect, and I respect each of you. So if you don't like it, change it. But I'm not going to sit here and keep answering the same questions over and over again.
Well, Senator, I think you are disrespecting this committee, and I do think that we are asking questions about your bill and trying to understand your bill. I think these are reasonable questions. This is not a question that we asked yesterday, and I would like to understand your bill.
Well, that's contrary to what you said yesterday, Madam Chair. You said yesterday the purpose of holding the bill over was to give the public an opportunity. If there's a person in the public who wants, anybody in the public who wants to testify.
I'm running this committee hearing, Senator Fields, and the public will have an opportunity to comment, and they will have an opportunity to talk about the amendment. But I would like to ask you a question, right, about the reason for why you drew the map you did, and I don't think that's an unreasonable question.
You're welcome to come and address Monroe.
I originally, Madam Chairperson, came to support Senator Fields as a co-author of this bill, but the conversation has come up about the Monroe area and the Ouachita Parish area, which I represent, and the testimony that took place during the road show. I believe at that time I had COVID, if I'm not mistaken, and
I'm sorry, Senator. I know we all know you, but for the record,
I
if you don't mind
apologize.
just
Yes.
introducing
Senator
yourself.
Katrina Jackson, District 34, encompassing a large portion of Ouachita Parish and the entirety of almost Monroe, a large portion of Monroe, Louisiana. The question has come up. I originally came to support the senator and other members who've co-authored this bill about the testimony in Ouachita Parish and Monroe regarding the 5th Congressional District during that road show. I believe that during that time I had COVID and I attended by Zoom, and I listened to every piece of testimony of my constituents. There was an overwhelming majority of African Americans in Ouachita and Ouachita Parish and Monroe who testified overwhelmingly that they wanted to be able to elect a person of their choosing, and they didn't think the current maps did that. I do remember probably 3 to 5 people who came to talk about not wanting that. But I remember about 20 or 30 people ad nauseum giving testimony to Madam Chairperson in this committee during the road show, talking about Ouachita and Ouachita Parish and Monroe wanting to elect a candidate of their choice and believing that they had not been represented adequately, not by the person, but by the way the district was drawn. Because I want to be very clear on that. I get along very well with my congresswoman, but as you know, I can't support or draw districts based on who represents my district. I draw and I'll support districts based on fairness. And so there was some testimony just now from Madam Chairperson, our statement, that there were people from Ouachita and Monroe, and it was 3 to 5 people. On the reverse side of that, during the road show, there was 20 to 30 people from that same area who talked about wanting a fair district. And so for that reason, I only came to the table because you asked a question about the area I represent.
And the testimony that I was referring to was testimony that we had here yesterday in this committee, where we had people that came from the Monroe area. We were asking them to help us understand, you know, the community of interest in that area. The map as it's drawn takes parts of West Monroe and leaves them in District 4. It takes parts in District 5 along with the rest of Monroe. So the questions were, you know, why are we doing that? What's the logic behind that? How do the people in Monroe, how do you believe the people in Monroe see themselves as a community of interest in the greater Monroe area,
right.
I'll say?
I'll speak from what they spoke on, not only during the road show, but in this committee, because I was also in the committee doing redistricting when a number of people came from Monroe. Their concern was less about, honestly, keeping a parish whole for a congressional district and making sure that parish had adequate representation. I believe that I've talked to some people and they said, look, to have 2 congressmen representing our parish works for them, because that's 2 people fighting for that parish. And that's the way they looked at it. And I can say here, when I look at the delegations, because of our population, we're smaller in number than most delegations. So when we come into the legislative session each year as a delegation, we don't have as many people fighting for our area. So we thought it to be advantageous. When I spoke to them last night, I did have a Zoom, and after the Zoom, we went on a private meeting. We thought it to be advantageous that we would have 2 congressional members from our area fighting for us. We felt that it was better.
And do you believe that where the district is drawn makes sense from a community of interest standpoint?
I do, yes. If you look at Congressional District 4 and 5, both of them have some very populated agriculture rural areas, and so we have that commonality. They also both center around an urban area, or our urban area in Congressional District 5 being Monroe, the urban area in Congressional District 4 at the time being, you know, the old map being Shreveport. Our districts are very similar in that the outlying areas of our districts are very rural. And then the hub of those districts where the main population lies, and not the main population as far as a district, if you look at those 2 parishes, right, Caddo and Ouachita, and because those are the hubs really in the north of those 2 districts, are very urban. And so we have always been very similar in our districts, district makeup, and our population of rural versus urban. And we've shared that commonality. Northeast Louisiana and Northwest Louisiana generally share a lot of commonality in communities of interest and what that means and what our representatives would fight for.
Did you hear the testimony in committee yesterday from some individuals I don't remember everyone's name. I didn't know everybody that was here, but they testified to the fact that in Congressional District 5, the way it was drawn in Senator Fields' map, that 30 to 35% of the population of that district would be in East Baton Rouge. Did you hear that testimony?
I didn't, but I'll take your word for it if that was the testimony given. I was in and out of watching it with my family yesterday. But I would tell you this right now in Congressional District 5, a large portion of our population is in Tangipahoa and other parishes. Congressional District 5 currently sits in, 20-some parishes. I don't think that this district is any more unique than the district we currently sit in as far as having multiple parishes in one district. Northeast Louisiana carries a density of population. Basically, it's real, like, not dense, I apologize, it's very fractured, our population. We have a lot of rural areas that are low in population. So regardless of how we draw Congressional District 5, if you look at the current map, Congressional District 5 consists of about 20-some parishes right now.
Mostly rural. Wouldn't you agree that the map, the way it's being proposed in Senate Bill 1, because it includes such a large part of East Baton Rouge, you are changing Congressional District 5 from one of rural, agricultural-based district to one that has an anchor in a very urban area? That was, again, I'm not quoting, but that was sort of my takeaway.
Madam Chairperson, when I looked at the numbers, Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish doesn't make up a majority of that district. I think it makes up 100 and some thousand of 700 and some thousand people. So I'm not sure if the constituents who testified yesterday had the actual numbers. But, I think how much is that district holding population right now under this map?
The whole district?
Yes.
We could pull it up. Senator Fields had all those numbers yesterday he read through.
And I left my map at home because, like I said, I came to support, but then you guys asked questions about my area, and since I had just talked to my constituents, I wanted to be very clear on where my constituents were with Senator Fields' map.
Yes, the District 5 has 776,292 people.
And in Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish, in that district?
189,802.
That's not a majority. That's not...
We didn't say majority. I think the testimony yesterday was 30 or 35%.
Right. And
we could do the math on that.
Right. And I think in the current Congressional District 5, there's no one parish, probably maybe holding 30%, but it's a widespread district. I think that regardless of how Congressional District 5 is drawn, as far as you're going to have parishes with more population than other parishes. As I said, because when you get into the rural areas of our parishes, you have less population. But at the end of the day, if we look at it, and I think Senator Fields, he's always prepared, even when I'm just here cheering him on. If you look at Congressional District 5, Avoyes is a rural parish. It has 39,000. Catahoula has almost 9,000. Concordia in my district is a very rural parish with almost 19,000. East Carroll is a extremely rural Delta area with almost 7,500. East Feliciano, rural area with almost 20,000. Evangeline with almost 9,000. That's a rural area. Franklin, extremely rural, 20,000. Iberville, rural with 3,500. And Madison, very rural, with 10,000. Morehouse with 25,000. Washita Parish with 69,000. If you take Morehouse and Washita together, you are at a rural population count before adding everything I just read of about 100,000 or 105,000. Point Compee is rural with 20,000. Rapides is a rural area with 60,000. So, and I can go on and on, but I don't need to do that. I'm sure the committee has this map. This district is still heavily rural based on the rural population of the parishes. And so even if you took, let's say, East Baton Rouge, 189,000, when you add up all the rural constituents, this district is overwhelmingly rural in its population.
It's certainly not as rural in the new map as it would be under the old map or the current map.
I do understand that, but as the senator said, we are not here because we called ourselves back into session. We're here because a federal judge ordered us to create 2 minority districts. So with that, it was not on our own fruition of being called here. And so we know what we're here to do. And so when I look at, number one, I'm an attorney, so I'm never going to attempt to not follow a court's order. Okay, because I love my bar license. And then I'm a senator who took the oath of office and to abide by the Constitution and how the framework is done, and there's a check and balance system on the three branches of government. The judicial branch has exercised its check and balance system, so I come here with good intent to try to preserve everything I can for my area and its representation, while also following the oath that I took and completing the duties of that judicial order that came out. And when I do that, I have to balance that. And so we know we can't stay with the old, even if we wanted to. But my constituents didn't want to anyway. The roadshow showed that, and their testimony in committee during redistricting showed that. So representing my constituents, upholding the oath that I take, there is a balancing act that has to be performed. And in that balancing act, when I looked at this district, and that's why I co-authored it, this district was very heavily populated rural. St. Landry Parish, 82,000. St. Martin, 42. Tangipahoa rural area, 20,000. West Baton Rouge is considered for me to be somewhat rural. West Feliciana is definitely, West Carroll is definitely rural. And that's what I judged it by. Was the majority, overwhelming majority of the population in Congressional District 5 based on this map still considered a rural district? And for me it was when I looked at the numbers. But I do find it an advantage, Madam Chairperson. I've always had one person representing me from my area in Congress. I do find it to be a great advantage that we would have two. That's two voices speaking for you. I can speak, you're part of the Orleans delegation. When you guys want something from Orleans and the state of Louisiana at the legislature, you all come together. When we want something in our rural area, it's 4 or 5 representatives or 6 representatives and 3 or 4 senators. Those votes outnumber us a lot. And so I like the fact of having someone else up there to represent me. I like the fact of having 2 congressmen to represent our area and our interests.
And I appreciate those points, and I appreciate your perspective. You know, the questions, again, were centered around communities of interest and the rationale and the logic behind drawing the map the way it was drawn.
And for me, the overwhelming thing for me when I looked at this map is this still an overwhelming rural district as far as the population, and it was, and it is.
But you would admit that it's less rural under the new map, the proposed map, than it currently is.
I'm not sure. I would have to look at the current numbers. But what's less rural and not rural is also the people that it represents and whether all of the people in that district have a fair voice. And so I think this map gives them a fair voice while giving them, in our parish, I may be being a little selfish in that, but I think we all come to do the job of our constituency, 2 congressmen to represent us who can expound our interests. And no one is ever opposed to having 2 congressmen from that represent their area.
Okay.
Madam Chair, do you have anyone from the public who wish to be heard?
Would you like to come sit in my chair, Senator Fields?
Not at all, Madam Chair. Not at all, and not at all. And I only say that not out of disrespect at all, but I thought that was the purpose of us being here today.
Well, let's do that. Okay. Let's get on with it. If you'll give up the table, I've got some red cards.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. I've got several red cards here, trying to see what make the most sense in terms of kind of which groups. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna I'll bring up 2 of you at a time so you don't have to wrestle with the laptop. Tom Kendrick, LaSalle Parish Assessor, and Representative Furman, representing Grant LaSalle. I gave you a promotion just as Senator Fields gave me a promotion.
Get a picture with him without crutching.
Hopefully my doctor's not watching.
He's milking this thing pretty hard.
Might need that sometimes.
It's worked so far.
Let's see, Representative, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Gabe Furman, District 22 State Rep, and I'm here this afternoon because I guess about this time yesterday I started getting calls from people around my district, Grant and LaSalle Parish, and they said, look, do you know the Senate is working on a plan that would put Grant and LaSalle in a congressional district with that Clay Higgins represents with Lake Charles and Lafayette. And I said, I did not know that, but let me look into it. And so really, I would certainly be opposed to that plan. And we've been talking about communities of interest, and that plan would drastically disrupt the communities of interest in Grant and LaSalle Parish. And so that's my primary opposition. Have looked at the original bill, which puts Grant and LaSalle, I believe, in District 4. Would certainly be opposed to that as well. So it's just when you look at that map, and some of these things have been mentioned, but Grant and LaSalle are very rural, timber, agricultural-based parishes. There's cultural cohesion, I think, with the 5th District, and more so with the 5th, but also with the 4th District. The idea for me that Gina and Breaux Bridge would be in the same district, that Pollock and Abbeville, Dry Prong, and Cameron would be in the same district, frankly, is just kind of ludicrous. And just one particular thing that stood out to me is looking at my district, going up Highway 165 in LaSalle Parish. You've got little small towns of Holly, Urania, and Tullis that they're really like families, dysfunctional at times, but families. And the amendment, I believe it was a committee amendment 12, would actually split those communities in two. And Senator Womack may be more knowledgeable about this than me, but just to give you an idea of what that would do, their water systems are connected, their sewer systems are connected. I believe Urania takes Tullis as sewer, and Urania gets water from Monmouth. So the idea of splitting those communities, and not to mention the fact they go to church together, they go to school together, they work at the same place. There's a big hospital or prison right there between those communities, and to split those up just doesn't make sense.
Well, I know you're very passionate about your area and very knowledgeable, and so we appreciate your perspective on that and bringing some of that additional information to the table.
And Senator Hewitt, if I could, and maybe the most concerning thing about this process to me is so I started getting these calls, and people wanted to come down here, but today's a holiday. Sunday's Father's Day, and to try to get people down here to testify in person with less than 24 hours notice is just unfair and undemocratic to me. And I know the committee really doesn't have any control over that, but I don't know if y'all have entered the emails you've received into the record, but I know I've gotten emails from dozens of people in LaSalle. The LaSalle assessor's here with me. I know the sheriff, school superintendent, school board members, police jury members, president of the police jury in Grant Parish have all sent emails in opposition. And the message is really the same. It's we just do not share many commonalities with the 3rd District. Please keep us together. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know Mr. Kendrick would like to say a few words as well.
All right, thank you. If you would introduce yourself.
So I'm Tom Kendrick. I'm the LaSalle Parish Assessor. And I've been assessor for about 10 years, and what I figured out is that you don't really know a place until you've hung out around there a while. And I've been to every door in LaSalle Parish. I've knocked on every door in LaSalle Parish. Every color, everybody. It doesn't matter to me. And I think that LaSalle belongs in District 5. I know we've been there for about 20 years. We're very rural. We have around 15,000 people. We have lots of things in common with them. If you go below, I was looking at this map sitting over there, and I'm going to tell you, besides my assessor friends, I bet you I don't know 25 people that live below Rapides Parish, because we don't have anything in common. We never go down there. It doesn't fit in our mix. But I know we've been in District 5 for about 30 years or better, and that's always seemed to work with us. Rural, farming, agriculture, kind of a parish. But then when I saw this map, I said, okay, not only are we coming out of 5, we're also being chopped up. And I don't understand that, because, you know, I got a pretty good idea of where the people live in my parish. We build maps in our office. And, I mean, it can't be that many people, and then to go all the way around. None of this makes any sense to me, because I can't figure out what people in West Carroll Parish have in common with people in St. Landry Parish. I mean, that makes no sense to me. So, but I'm not here to talk about them. But, you know, what we would like to do is have LaSalle Parish whole and be with parishes like ours, and we believe that that's in the 5th District.
All right, I appreciate that perspective very much. All right, a question from Senator Price.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Representative, in the bill that was enacted, was not Grant Parish split in that bill?
It was. Yeah, it was split between the 5th and the 4th District.
Correct. And now you're saying they're holding in the bill that is here. It's just that it's not in the 5th District. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my primary opposition would be to the bill that puts Grant and LaSalle in the 3rd District, which goes all the way down to the coast. But yeah, I
Grant and LaSalle is in the 5th District in this map.
well, I guess it depends on which one we're talking about. I believe we've got an amendment.
Polls map.
Yep. We're talking about the bill unamended, correct? Is that what you're
Right,
referring to?
exactly.
Right,
As amended by Representative Reese.
right. Yeah, so
But you were talking about being split.
Yeah, so as the
and it
LaSalle
was-
Parish State
it was-
Rep.
Yeah, it was also split in the enacted map.
Yeah. So first of all, as the LaSalle Parish State Rep, I would echo the objections of Mr. Kendrick that historically LaSalle Parish has been in the 5th District, and this map would change that and put LaSalle in with Vernon, Natchitoches, Caddo. So yeah, certainly some disruptions in communities of interest there as well.
But I was just trying to figure out if it was splitting the enacted map. Did you vote for the enacted map?
Yes, sir. No,
And it was-
LaSalle District is in the 5th District under that map. the
But it
current
was
map.
also split.
No.
Yes, not LaSalle, but look, which one? Grant was.
Yeah, there was a small sliver of Grant.
Yeah.
Didn't like it then. I still can't say that I was crazy about it, but and I will certainly say that there's more in common with Western Grant and the 4th Congressional District. So, you know, wasn't crazy about it, but Senator kind of got outvoted on that. You know how that goes.
But you voted for it.
Yeah.
You didn't get outvoted. You
No,
voted with
well,
them.
I voted for it.
Yeah.
I think I voted to concur with the final bill, but I voted against it initially. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I appreciate y'all very much for being here. Thank you. All right, Deborah Randolph from the Central Louisiana Regional Chamber of Commerce. If you'd like to come to the table, President would like to speak in opposition. And then the other card I have in opposition, Blake Phillips, the LaSalle Economic Development District, present in opposition but does not wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Deborah Randolph, President of the Central Louisiana Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to share our thoughts and concerns about Rapides Parish and some of the surrounding areas in Central Louisiana. The question we're facing is whether to break apart our district, split up countless communities of common interest, and drastically divide some of our parishes and municipalities, and certainly that's the case with Rapides Parish with this map. And I'm here to express some concerns about that. Adopting this map, for example, will cost North Louisiana a congressional seat, and here's what I mean by that. And more than just this map would make Baton Rouge the population center of a new district, shifting away from our current configuration and dividing the representation from Monroe and Alexandria. And so basically the 5th District would have more residents from East Baton Rouge Parish than Ouachita and Rapides combined. And so this not only creates a situation where the numbers drastically shift from north to south, but the 5th District would literally also have more residents in Lafayette Parish than Rapides. And the voting population from Lafayette Parish would nearly be equal to the one in Ouachita as well. So if this map is allowed to be enacted, more than 60% of the 5th's population would now live in South Louisiana. And it would ensure that sometime in the near future, 5 of our 6 representatives in Congress would be from below I-10. Adopting the maps will break apart communities of common interest, divides Monroe, Alexandria, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. The only major population center in the state that doesn't seem to be split up is Shreveport, Bossier, and Lake Charles. And honestly, relative to communities of interest, to place a big swath of Rapides Parish into the 3rd Congressional District with Lake Charles and Lafayette is problematic for us relative to those communities of interest. Our biggest sectors are agriculture and timber. We're a healthcare hub, and we have some manufacturing as well. And other than that, we are a region of small businesses, but so much agriculture and timber in our area. But it's not just the major cities. The map separates Slidell from Covington, Pineville from Alexandria, Ville Platte from Mamou, Karen Crow from Broussard, Breaux Bridge from St. Martinville and New Iberia, Zachary from Central, for example, and LeCount from Forest Hill. So, look, to me, the common areas of interest are very local to me in their definition. And they have so much in common in geography, commerce, culture, and character. And so, of course, that's what I'm so concerned with. And the legal case argues that the maps must account for unique economies and different histories between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, but then it doesn't account for it in other areas of the state, it looks like to me. The case also argues that the Delta and South Louisiana parishes, such as St. Martin and St. Landry, should be joined because they have shared economic interest in petroleum and sugarcane. But in reality, any good farmer will tell you that there's no sugarcane north of Rapides Parish. But look, we're looking at these common areas of interest, and that's so important in drafting these districts, and I understand what an incredibly difficult job this is. But the people back home where I live feel like we've been carved up more times lately than a Thanksgiving turkey, only they're not feeling all that thankful about some of it. So that's what I'm asking consideration of is keeping us whole. As Representative Furmett said in such a passionate way about his parish, we would like to be left whole. So this map has part of us in the 3rd and part of us in the new 5th District. And so that's basically something that we see that is problematic for us. In the way I see it too, what is happening here is that the maps pit cities against the rural areas. And so such that rural interests such as agriculture and broadband and that access plays second fiddle to the urban interest. And so I see that as problematic for us and the things that we're trying to work on so diligently and achieve in our district, in our area of the state right now. And so honestly, it's going to give cities a greater bite at the apple while the rural areas are left behind to struggle. And so the other thing that I see is that history tells us that redrawing such as it's proposed in this could very easily be overturned. And so I would ask that we work together to look at it and to try to come up with a way to keep parishes together and communities of interest together while achieving what we want to do with our redistricting. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Randolph. I thought you made an interesting point that I had not really heard made exactly the same way, and that was, and I'm paraphrasing or restating in some way, but when you look at the 5th district, when you're grabbing parts of Monroe, parts of Alexandria, parts of Lafayette, and parts of Baton Rouge, your worry is, I believe you said, that now you've got some of these urban areas in here that get kind of all the attention to at the expense of the rural communities.
Right.
And that is one of the things that makes the 5th district, so unique, is that, again, trying to focus on the rural aspects of it to make sure that you're getting your share of the funding, both at the federal and the state level. So that was kind of an interesting point. Did I say that right? Was that part of
It is
what
a
your
concern
message was?
because what this proposed map does is place a big swath of Rapides Parish, particularly the more rural area of it, in the 3rd congressional district, which puts it in the same congressional district with Lake Charles and Lafayette, for example. And then the little, if you can call Alexandria and Pineville more urban, that area does go into the 5th district. So, but then that area, which is certainly the smaller guy on the block with some of the other urban areas that go into the new 5th, create that concern that you restated.
Bill, I'm going to ask you to come back, if you would, and pull up the Rapides, I think we call it Rapides Vernon map, so we can just see that in a little more detail. And I don't know if this is the map, so can you see it from where you are? I think the yellow, again, is District 5. The finger there, I'll call it, is the Alexandria area. Can you recognize where we are on the map? So when you look at the Alexandria, Pineville area, how do you see that as a community of interest, and do we have the whole community of interest together? I appreciate your points about not wanting to split between 2 congressional districts, but even if you were to say, let's put the whole Alexandria, Pineville area in District 5, did we do that with this map, or are we missing some pieces?
Well, again, a big swath of Rapides Parish, such as Woodworth and Boyce and Rock Hill and Pollock, Creola, Ball, which is a big growing community, are placed into the 3rd under this map, the 3rd district, with Lake Charles and Lafayette, and then in the yellow portion of Alexandria and Pineville and other surrounding communities, and those precincts go into the 5th, down to Echo, 5th Ward, LeCount.
The area that you all in general consider to be the Alexandria Pineville area, is it all in District 5 or not under this map? Can you tell?
I'm sorry.
The area that you all would consider, I mean, in Slidell, we it's not just the city of Slidell boundaries. It's, there's others of us that have a zip code that says Slidell, but we're not in the city of Slidell boundaries. We're in the parish part. But so how does it work in the Alexandria Pineville area? Do you all, I don't know which of these precincts you all would consider to be kind of in the Alexandria area. Did we capture all of those in yellow and put them in District 5, or did we not? Did we split them up in some way?
No, we did not, and we very much work as a, first of all, we work as a region, but we certainly work together as a parish to move forward and have great people who work in a wonderful fashion together to promote and grow the businesses that we have of all sizes and to attract new ones. And so this certainly splits us up relative to the way that we work economic development, for example.
Is there anything based on what you know as the head of the Chamber of Commerce in this area that would cause you to want to separate, again, this Alexandria area into two pieces as it's separated out? Is there something unique, a community of interest that would justify, part of it being in District 3 and part of it being in District 5?
No, it would not. I would favor keeping all of Rapides Parish together in one district because of those common interests of the parish.
Okay. Okay.
And we work certainly with a wider swath of central Louisiana, but certainly it's daunting and difficult to think of our own parish base to be split like it's proposed to be.
Yeah, and I can certainly appreciate that. All right, Bill, if you would, Dr. Blair, if you don't mind, pull up the color-coded black voting age population map and see if you can find our way to the Alexandria Pineville area. Okay, so the darker colors are the higher black voting age population, which, in my opinion, models pretty well what we pulled into District 5. So what appears to me is an attempt again to go grab the blacker precincts in that area for District 5 to try to get the numbers up to a minority district, black district. Okay. Anything else, Ms. Randolph?
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Senator Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Randolph, I just didn't want to miss the opportunity. You've been such a leader in central Louisiana, especially in terms of liaising with the legislature on issues that are important to not just Rapides Parish, but the greater region. And I thank you for coming down here today, because I think, the better understanding that you have as somebody working on the ground in that area to best portray to the legislature the community of interest that exists in not dividing the city of Alexandria into multiple districts, or not dividing the city of Pineville in multiple districts, and the efforts that have been underway for many decades now to all work together on economic development, on education, on workforce training. All these things occur as a team effort in that area, and I think that's kind of what you were detailing. So
That's certainly the case. We work on those together with our various partners in economic development, as well as our mayors, our city government, our parish government, and so you stated that very well, and I appreciate that. And of course, we have a great working relationship with Vernon Parish. And
well, thank you for taking the time to bring that to our attention.
thank you very much.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, I think those are all the red cards. I did get a late green card. I want to read in Terry Landry Jr., SPLC Action Fund, present in support, not wishing to speak. And members, you have a number of documents in your folder relative to, I think these are all in opposition. Is that right, Madam Secretary? These are all in opposition to SB 1. Yeah, okay. So you also had in your folder an email that I think we touched on it yesterday, but perhaps not, from Congressman Troy Carter in support of SB 1. So you've got that in your folder. You've also got a number of, and I'll just try to briefly mention the names here. Randall Briggs, these are all in opposition. Let's see. Gabe Ferment in opposition. We heard from him earlier. Former Congressman Bob Livingston in opposition. Shad Rice. Cynthia Cockerham from LaSalle Economic Development District. Sorry, it's difficult. Some of these are long. Let's see. Dura Walter or Walter Doro? Walter Dora, okay. Stephanie Knight, Jean Steen, Janice Steen, Blake Phillips. I think I can see these. They're just about at the end here. Reed Walters. Okay, so those are all in your folder. Okay, in addition, I just received these cards in support. Wishing to speak, Chico Yancey, if you'd like to come forward. You're going to wave? Okay. Thank you, sir. Ashley Shelton, President Support, not wishing to speak, Power Coalition. Edgar Cage, Present in Support, not wishing to speak. Shay Foster, Present in Support, not wishing to speak with the SPLC Action Fund. And Kayla Coutreau, the Amanda Louisiana Group, Present in Support. Okay. All right, I think those are all the cards, all the emails. The board is clear. Do I see any other questions or comments from the group, from the committee? All right, so we have an amended bill before us. What's the pleasure of the committee? Yes, yes, thank you. Good idea. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, for the time that you have put in this bill. I've been before this committee several times, and I want to thank you for the patience you've put in deliberating on redistricting. And it's been a very long, tedious process because you've been all over the state dealing with this issue. But as always, I always take a moment of personal privilege when I talk about congressional redistricting, because it is personal to me. And I've shared with this committee, in the 1800s, the first black man ever elected to Congress was never seated. And he wasn't seated because he was black. And when John Willis Menard tried to take his oath of office, they didn't allow him to take his seat. He was elected from the 2nd Congressional District in New Orleans. And a gentleman from Ohio objected to his certification only because he was black. No other reason. He wasn't the first black person elected from Louisiana. He was the first black person elected in the history of this country. And that gentleman from Ohio said, it's just not time for a black person to be elected to this body. No other reason. No other reason. And he said, I want to move not to seat this colored guy. Let's save the $5,000. And let's send him back to New Orleans, Louisiana. And he didn't have, John Willis Menard didn't have the power to fight. He was one vote. Packed his bags, and he came back to New Orleans. Didn't have no power. Fighting against 434 members of Congress. Got elected, but didn't have the power to fight. But then, you know about Charles Nash. He got elected from Baton Rouge to Opelousas, and they seated him. Nobody ever talks about John Willis Menard because they never gave him an opportunity to be seated. Now, when you read in the history books, you will learn that 5 people were elected and seated. 5 black people in the history of this state. 5. 5 black people have been elected and seated in the United States Congress. How many have been elected total? 172 people. Out of 172 people, 5 have been black. 5. And today I just simply offer you a bill. Since Reconstruction, there have been 4 blacks elected to the United States Congress. 4. I'm one of them. 4. We elect 6 every 2 years. I'm asking you to just send 2. 2. Just 2 of the 6. This bill is compact. I mean, it's the best plan I could come up with. And Chairman Hewitt, I really meant no disrespect. I really didn't. And I know you didn't, and I apologize to you. But I'm ready to just get this thing done, one way or the other. So I tender this bill to you. If you vote for it, that's a good thing. It's a step in the right direction for our state. If you vote against it, we're going to spend more money litigating. You know, in the courts, we call it dilatory tactics. You just keep delaying. Let's stop delaying the inevitable. Do you think black people deserve representation in Congress? Of course they do. And that's what this bill is all about. That's why these 4 federal judges said, no, y'all need to get this business done. Come on now. It's not right. Everybody in here knows it's just not right. It's not right. And just sometimes people just got to do the right thing. And now is that time. Now is that time. Right now is the time to do the right thing. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not after this bill. Right now is the time to do the right thing. You might not have tomorrow. So I offer this bill to you and I ask you to vote for it. Thank you for your time.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. Appreciate your passion for this topic and the work that you've done to propose solutions that you support. I certainly agree with you on one point, and you know, I'm ready for all this to be over as well. And you know, these are, I think, redistricting bills are tougher than almost any bills that we've heard, and you and I have both served for a few years now in the legislature, and they're difficult. They're not only are they just technically difficult, because any move in one district, of course, has a ripple effect in the other district. It's hard to make all the numbers balance and to fit all the criteria that are put on us to do so. This is also complicated in trying to thread the needle between the Voting Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. And especially when we're talking about race, which, you know, because the judge's order put us directly in a conversation about race for this 6-day session, and I think it has made it a very difficult conversation to have. And so, you know, I apologize to you as well. You know, if I was pushing a little bit too hard or pushing back or showing my emotions as well, but I do believe that the map that we've passed already, we have done the right thing. And I do believe that is a good map. I understand the judiciary has a role in all of this, and the legislature has a role, and we're all trying to do our part to the best of our ability. And I know that you are as well. All right. Senator Tarver.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we report this bill favorable as amended.
All right. Senator Womack.
Substitute motion to defer.
All right. All right, so Senator Tarver has made a motion to which Senator Womack has made a substitute motion to defer. A vote yes would be to defer. A vote no would be to go back to the original motion. All right, Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Senator Milligan? Yes. Senator Allen? Yes. Senator Foyle? Yes. Senator Harris? No. Senator Price? No. Senator Reese? Yes. Senator Tarver? No. Senator Womack? Yes. Senator Hewitt?
Yes.
Yes. That is 6 yeas and 3 nays.
All right, and the bill is deferred.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Yes, sir, thank you. Senator Ward with SB 3. Sorry, we're reshuffling here a little bit,
I understand.
trying to get, we can collect a lot of paper in these redistricting bills as well. All right. Senate Bill 3, Senator, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I'm not going to do a lengthy opening or introduction of the bill, mainly because I know y'all are probably much more familiar with the numbers and all those things related to maps than I am. But I will get into that in a second. My main reason for filing a bill was federal judge put in place an order to which at this point I feel like we had an obligation to put our best foot forward in trying to come to something other than what we had in place right now. And I know that there are ways to do that. We can have that discussion. And part of that is trying to find some middle ground in terms of what we passed, maybe even what was just heard moments before this. And it's not an easy thing to do. I think when the bill was filed yesterday, they probably had folks from both sides of this argument or equation that were unhappy with it. And I've handled a number of bills at this time in my career, and typically whenever you're trying to strike a balance, the starting point for most bills that are filed with that in mind are people being upset from both sides. So I understood that would probably happen, but be that as it may, I'm just going to briefly touch on the bill, and then of course we can go on to answer questions from there. So within the order that we are here to operate under, one of the things, or the main thing that was discussed is that we shall have, or we should have, two minority, or not minority seats, but two majority black seats. And so what this district does, it takes District 2 and it makes it 52% and a little, 52.09% black and 47.9% of white and other. District 6, 51.95% black and 48.04% white and other. In terms of the deviation for all the districts, I believe the largest deviation out of all of them, all the districts, all 6, is 84, and that would be District 4, and the second largest would be District 5, which is a minus 70 off of the perfect number of 776,292. So I know there's going to be a ton of questions. Instead of me continuing to present it that way, I'd be happy to just go on through and answer. I'm sure you'll probably do a lot of that yourself, but I'll be here to answer what I can.
Okay, all right, thank you for the introductory comments. So, one of the, I guess, the first things that I notice about this map compared to many of the other maps that we've looked at is just visually, it makes some pretty significant changes in terms of where the geography is for the different districts. So, there's several notable ones, right? So now District 5 comes across the northern part of the state. You have a little bit more, of a horizontal type perspective on that rather than the two districts that we currently have.
Right.
So, we've got the map up there. You've got District 3 representing the entire coast from Cameron to St. Bernard, which is very different than the map. The enacted map has, 3 different people representing the coast. District 6 becomes more of a North Shore district. So District 6 picks up a lot of the Florida parishes, et cetera, kind of over in my area, which is very different. So what consideration did you give to, traditional redistricting principles, which includes continuity of representation? So to me, one of the again, the noticeable things is when you compare, let's say, the maps that we're currently working under from the 2010 census to this map, there's some pretty major shifts in terms of continuity of representation. Was that something that you considered when you were drafting your map?
I think that was considered, and I believe whenever you look at the map in general, there's continuity can be looked at in many different ways. For example, the map that goes across more of North Louisiana, I think you could make a good argument that there's a lot in common there in terms of those parishes. If you go down to District 6, in terms of how it lays out, it's not a whole lot different than how you would see some of the legislative districts drawn in terms of continuity and things like that. But really the starting point for drawing this map was to try and give us a starting point that adhered to the order that we were operating under, and from there we worked on it from there. And so, look, can you ever get to that perfect place in terms of continuity? I don't know, but I do think that this does carry that. And I know, for example, District 3 that goes entirely across the coast, when you have one person that they could really become an expert on such things as coastal erosion or any other matter dealing with the coast. And so certainly there's a lot that goes on there. Now look, are the folks different in Cameron maybe than they are in Plaquemine or St. Bernard? I'm sure they are, but in terms of a lot of what they deal with on a daily basis, I think would be similar.
Okay, and so similar to some of the things that we observed in Senate Bill 1, there's a lot of fingers kind of jutting out in places where we split some parishes. One of the ones I noticed is over in my district, over in St. Bernard. That to me, I mean, the people in the parish, they're all one community of interest. And I see you've split it between District 3 and District 2. Yeah, so there you are. So that's got, you can see, so St. Bernard is over on the eastern side of that map. Mm-hmm. You've got kind of the big finger there that picks up, Precinct 50. And then you've got this purple part from District 3 that just comes right into St. Bernard, splits it right in half, as a matter of fact, So for me, in my area, and knowing that community, I mean, that just quite honestly just makes no sense whatsoever from a community of interest standpoint? What was
Well-
your thinking about that area?
I don't know that I necessarily thought about that area specifically, but whenever you're talking about doing things like that, so in West Baton Rouge, where I live currently, we have 2 congressional districts that run down LA1, and you've got Addis and Bruley and these different city of Port Allen, and in a very similar way, on one side of the road you've got one congressman representing, and on the other side of the road you've got another congressman representing that area. And so
Well, this is even worse than that. I mean, to drive from one side of St. Bernard to the other, you have to drive through Congressional District 3 to get there, right? You'd go from District 2 through 3 back to District 2,
yeah.
you know, and so that just doesn't make any sense to me.
And look, and I understand that perspective. What I would say to that is, under our current maps, you have, when I say current, I mean the ones that
The 2010 map that we're operating under now? Okay.
That's it. You have a lot of similar situations, and I think the reason for that is you can do your absolute best to try and keep community interests together, but whenever you are trying to weigh how you draw maps and keep the deviation as close as possible, but also manage in terms of the population and the demographics, it can become difficult to not have some areas around the state that look similar to that. And like I said, that goes on all the way dating back to the 2010 map in the parish I live in.
Okay, Bill, Dr. Blair, if you would put up kind of that St. Bernard area with the black voting age population color-coded map thing that we have, and see if you can zoom in on the that area. Okay. So, I mean, so you weren't here, were you in the room earlier, Senator Ward, when we talked about the color coding on this map? Bill, Dr. Blair, maybe explain the color codings for the senator.
Madam Chairwoman and Senator, the color coding is the darker blue it gets, the more voting age population black the precinct is. So the deep blue is plus 75% African American VAP. The lighter blue is 50 to 75. The light green is 25 to 50, and gray is 0 to 25% voting age population black percentage.
Okay.
Okay, and then when I go back to our redistricting principles, HCR 90, and I'll read this directly. This is H. All redistricting plans shall respect the established boundaries of parishes, municipalities, and other political subdivisions and natural geography of the state to the extent practicable. However, this criterion is subordinate to and shall not be used to undermine the maintenance of communities of interest within the same district to the extent practicable. So again, communities of interest are very important, and I would submit to you that this area of your map breaks up a community of interest that I know and love, the people of Chalmette, and it appears to me that maybe, and you sort of hinted to this earlier in your comments, you know, this appears to me to be largely drawn to try to adhere to the directive of the court to draw 2 black districts, and the precincts that you included in District 2 were done deliberately to create a black district in District 2. Would you not agree with that?
Well, I think what I would say to that is, you know, and from what you just read, the last part of that, the sentence, I believe, was to the extent possible. So you do want to do your best to keep those communities of interest together to the extent possible. And so I think we did that in this map to the extent possible.
It's practicable, and there's some legal difference between that.
Practical. I apologize. I thought I tried to write it down, but
yeah, it's practicable.
Practical. So, but either way, to the extent practicable, and I think we attempted to do that, but also within the guardrails of what we're actually called back here to do. And so I do think those things were kept in mind, but yes, that was there's no doubt that when you see some of the different fingers that go into different communities, there's always a reason for that, and a lot of times it has to do with the population. And so I'm kind of a visual person sometimes, but we've talked a lot about percentages and things like that. So when you have 6 of anything in particular.
Hang on 1 second. Let's get the screen set so we can see what you're doing a little bit better. I didn't know we were going to have show and tell today, so that's let's get
I have to simplify things for myself.
Let's get the lights back on so we can see what you're doing. Okay. All right, Senator, thank you.
We have 6 districts that we have to draw. If everything was just 6 solid pieces, it would be easy. It would look like this, 4 and 2. It'd be simple. We wouldn't have any problems. But what we have to do is get 6 districts out of something that looks more like this. And you've got 4 and 2, 4 orange and 2 blue. But they're, in a lot of cases, all mixed together. And so there's no way to not have situation where you have to dive into certain places and get the appropriate amount of votes necessary in certain areas. And so I don't think that there's a map that could be drawn in any iteration where you wouldn't have some of that take place.
And I mean that's the whole rub, isn't it? I mean that's the challenge is trying to again respect all the redistricting principles of the federal and the state laws, protect our communities of interest, provide continuity of representation, while balancing both the Voting Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. And so that's what this committee has been working to do now for 9 months. We're coming up on a 9-month effort to do just that. So, I appreciate your effort and your thoughts. There's an infinite number of ways to draw maps. And, I know that when we look at our own individual maps, the map in our areas that we're most familiar with, it's easy to find, shortcomings in those maps. Did you start out, I'm not sure if you said this or not, but so let me ask you again because I thought I heard you say it. Did you start out drawing the 2 majority black districts first to meet the court order, and then drew the other ones after that?
No, I don't think that was the way we went about it. The way we really went about it was when I sat down with staff, my thoughts were I'd like to see a map that is drawn in a way that that complies with the current court order. And I don't necessarily mean to draw 1 or 2 or 3 of the districts in any particular order, but the final outcome of what that map is, I wanted to be able to sit down at the table knowing that what I had complied, and from there we just kind of went.
So most of the other maps ended up that I guess Senate Bill 1 as well as the House maps that I've looked at take Congressional District 5 and turn that into a majority black district as well as District 2, which as you know currently is. Why did you choose 6?
Quite honestly, we were just looking for a way to keep 5 in a more of an east-west manner, and number 4 going from more north to central type Louisiana, and then in an effort to keep those things that way, in order to come up with the 6th district, you have what you have now.
Okay, so part of your instruction to staff was to start out by having an east-west strategy in the northernmost districts?
That's correct.
Okay. And what was the thought behind that? I mean, why do that? Again, continuity of representation would cause you to want to continue having north-south districts as we're accustomed to today.
Well, maybe so. I don't know though. For example, the current, I guess it would be currently 5. You've got, for example, Congresswoman Letlow. She represents from East and West Carroll all the way over through the Feliciana and St. Helena and into Tangipahoa, maybe all the way into Washington Parish. So I think in terms of continuity, this feels more likely to have that than what currently is in place to me.
Well, the way we have kind of been using continuity of representation is the idea that, I want to have the same congressman or congresswoman today that I do tomorrow, because I, as a voter, know how well that person has been representing my district. And if you dump me over into a different district, it's kind of a whole new ballgame. But I know how well the person representing me in Congress has been doing or not doing. And so the more people you shift into a new congressional district, that is disrupting the continuity of representation. And although I didn't do the math on it, but to me, because everything is, you started out with a strategy of having an east-west district up in District 5, and District 6 comes into the Florida parishes that were previously there in District 5. I mean, I think you would have a lot of people in the state of Louisiana that now are in a different congressional district than the one they were, yesterday, I'll say.
Sure.
And so for me, that is a huge disruption of continuity of representation. And, in addition, you probably, in terms of congressional projects and things that they're working on. These are long-term projects in Washington. You would hate to just sort of all of a sudden kind of shift to where now this big project you've been working on for 10 years with a particular congressman or congresswoman now gets handed over to somebody else that may not have all the history, not to say that they're not all competent with great staffs, but that would be disruptive in my way of thinking, and that's part of the point behind continuity of representation.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think I don't think there's any easy way to do that, or do this, I should say. But I do believe whenever if we didn't take a look at something different, we would have probably just kind of been stuck in neutral. So I wanted to give a different look, and I know all those things have to be weighed, and the court will weigh all those things as this moves forward, or the current proceedings move forward. But this was the best effort we could make in terms of trying to provide a different look.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. All right, let's move along here. Senator Alain.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Actually, the part of your map that I like is that you consolidated the coast. I think that's something that I've often advocated for, that the coast is consolidated. I know the biggest problem that I see right here, and after talking to several other members, which I may be the only one here that likes the map. I know it's pretty widely disliked. Chopping up Lafayette, chopping up Lake Charles is problematic at best. Not include also Rapides and I guess parts of St. Bernard that Senator Hewitt spoke about. But a general concept of consolidating the coast into one district has some appeal to me. So I don't hate your map. I may be one of the few, but it's I think something I could live with, but I'm afraid that it's not going to go very far.
Okay.
All right, Senator, thank you. Senator Milligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the map, and it's Barksdale Air Force Base is under this map in the 5th District, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. And yesterday we spoke at length about, the strength and the continuity of strength and the common interest that having both of our large military installations under one congressman, what that does as far as the power that it gives us. Barksdale Fort Polk currently, and we mentioned this yesterday, provides $10 billion in annual economic impact, 77,000 jobs, $350 million in state income taxes on an annual basis. And on top of that, according to the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, we're provided over $1 billion in construction funding between those two installations going forward. My concern with that is dividing these bases into separate districts dilutes that power that Congressman Johnson has on his committee and weakens us as a state. And so I'm concerned there. And then it appears from the map that
if I could just speak to that
yes,
before we move on. So I have talked to staff because I looked back at what was discussed yesterday, and of course the bill had already been made ready and filed. But if we were fortunate enough to make the floor, there is an amendment that could fix
solve
that and put them both in the same congressional district, and us not have a major problem in terms of numbers for either district.
I appreciate your consideration of that. I mean, that's a huge win for our state, and we need all the wins we can get. And
I would commit to you to do that if this bill moves forward.
Okay. The other thing that you may just want to check on, and I don't know the answer to this, but it looks like under this map, the congressman's been drawn into District 5. He lives in Benton proper, which it looks like is Precinct 2-1. I'm not sure if you've had a conversation with the congressman, but I believe he's just been drawn into Congressional District 5.
And that's very possible. I don't know where, quite honestly, I don't know where any 6 of them live, and I have not spoken with any of them.
Understand. Just
for many reasons, but I did not speak with any of them about this, but I would understand that. I would say this, though, the difference between legislative seats and congressional seats, you do not have to live within the district that you run for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've been told Congressman Graves is kind of right on the edge of his district also in the way this is drawn. I'm not sure if he's in or out, but he's kind of right on the edge. Okay. All right. Senator Foyle.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senator Ward, thank you for the proposal. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just to clarify for the record, and really some things I went through with Senator Fields on his bill as well, just to clarify where we are in the judicial process and really why we are here. We have an ongoing case, but the judge has ruled on a motion, on a preliminary injunction. Mm-hmm. But just to be clear, there's not been a trial on the merits of the lawsuit at this point.
No, there has not been a trial or a hearing on the merits of the appeal at this point. So we're just operating under an order that is up for appeal that will, I guess, be heard sometime in July.
And even on top of that, the only thing that was granted so far was a preliminary injunction. So even if the preliminary injunction were to stand, the defendants would certainly have a right to go back to the trial court to have a full-fledged trial on whether or not the maps are out of compliance.
As far as I know, I'm not exactly sure. I know at some point there was a week-long, I don't know if it was a trial or a hearing.
Trial on a preliminary injunction, because the only thing that's been granted so far by the trial judge is a preliminary injunction.
Yeah.
And so just trying to clarify for the record, there's some other things going on out there, and as you've already pointed out, the Fifth Circuit has already agreed to take up the argument on the preliminary injunction on the merits in July, but they've not ruled whether or not it's valid or not at this point.
They have not ruled whether or not they will uphold or not uphold the district court's ruling at this time.
And then arguably the losing party could go at least apply for writs to the Supreme Court if they chose to do that.
They could.
And so I put some amendments, which Senator Fields was willing to accept, which I appreciate, on his bill regarding these contingencies. And it looks like you've already put that amendment in your bill. I'm looking
Double checking. I think we added that language. I actually left. I have the numbers and the.
You do. It's on page. It's on. I'm looking for page 12, line 15. So I don't think I need to add the amendment to your bill because I think you have that clarification language in here, which looks at what happens with the litigation.
Yes, it is there, and
so I appreciate that language because if your bill were to pass, that gives the parties a chance to still look at the older map through the court process if they choose to do that.
no, I think that's right. I mean, from my perspective, having that language gives us the ability to operate under the current court order,
Yeah.
but at the same time, as the process moves forward, if the final ruling, whether it be the Supreme Court or whatever it may be, is something other than what has already passed, then we would have decided what we wanted to replace it with, as opposed to maybe the judicial system.
And then really lastly, just about the map itself. I know you're doing the best you can with the data you have. All of us have suggestions to make things better, I would say, but then it throws something else off as well. But something I really would want to look at, and I'm not prepared to try to offer an amendment today because I just haven't had enough time to get with staff. But if you look at the new 3rd district, it does include actually where I live in East Baton Rouge Parish, and it's a pretty wide area from Cameron all the way to St. Bernard. So I would want to work with you, Senator Ward, on what you've done with East Baton Rouge Parish to see if we could tighten that up a little bit.
Look, I appreciate that. I am open to if this bill were to make it to the floor, I'm open to really anything that keeps us in the vein or between the guardrails of complying with the current court order that we're operating under. And so in terms of amendments to try and make the districts better or more suitable for representation, I'm wide open to suggestions.
Well, I appreciate that. Once again, these are somewhat unusual times with this deadline that we're under and all the uncertainty, but I appreciate your efforts because, we're here to act in good faith and do what we can here. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Senator. And just kind of as a reminder, again, the position that this committee has taken is that, we would work to do amendments in this committee so that the public has an opportunity to comment on those amendments as they did earlier on the amendments on Senate Bill 1. When we make a change in Vernon Parish, there was a ripple effect in LaSalle and Grant, and those folks had an opinion about that, and they shared that with us earlier today. And so while we want to move things along and we understand there's a short timeline, we also don't want to short-circuit the transparency steps that are so important in redistricting because, of course, this is the map that we're going to live with for the next 10 years. So I just kind of wanted to put that on the record while we're talking about that. And I'd be remiss, too, if I didn't talk about my former home parish of Calcasieu. It's also pretty significantly chopped up. Again, that's, that one of the big messages that we got when we were at the road show, and probably every month for 5 months leading up to the road show, was from George Swift and the folks over with the Southwest Louisiana Economic Development, and one Acadiana reminded me that they see themselves as one group, one community of interest between Acadiana and the Lafayette Lake Charles area, basically, I will say. And so, in my way of looking at it, you've really not adhered to that that very, very, very strong message that we got not just on the road show, but every time I got dragged into a chamber meeting or any kind of a panel discussion in that part of the state, they always made sure that I understood that that was their very strong preference. And so, I do see that as a concern, again, of mine in that part of the state.
And look, I understand that. I think that the more you can keep the communities of interest together, the better. My experience with having multiple congressmen or even multiple legislators or senators or state representatives sharing parishes is that if done right and if everybody works together, they can absolutely have stronger representation with multiple people. But I do understand Senator Price and I have been together before places where people say, well, which one, whose district do I live in? And we look at each other and say, we don't know, because there's literally a street, a neighborhood street, and some people on one side vote in one district and some people on the other side vote in the other district. So it is part of the process of trying to keep everybody together as best as possible. But I do understand that.
Okay. All right, Senator Reese, are you ready?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senator Ward, just one topic, and I won't get too deep into it, but one of the things we didn't necessarily spell out in name as we've discussed some of these maps is one of the principles that you have to stay away from in redistricting, that of gerrymandering. The drawing of a district solely for the purpose of capturing one political group or another. You're an attorney. I'm not. You probably understand the concept better than I do, but just the Rapides Parish, for instance, in your District 6. I mean, what would be the point of that incursion into Rapides Parish, and from the point where it begins to the point that it ends, if not gerrymandering?
Well, I'm sure that it could be seen as gerrymandering if that's the way you want to look at it. But in terms of just trying to get enough overall population to stay within the deviation, you've got to find your way into populated areas to get the numbers where you need them to be. And so, from my aspect or from my perspective, that doesn't necessarily always mean you're gerrymandering based on race or party or anything like that, but you've got to have enough population to make the district work numbers wise.
And that's not the way you do it.
Okay.
Even if a constituent, you write a letter for them or do something.
I mean, if somebody else wants to do that, I'm okay with it. I mean, I just and I appreciate that, Senator Ward, and I
There's a hot mic right there.
it just seems like that. And we've seen this in multiple different versions, but that district number 6, you end up having to go out. It could be you could be using rivers as a boundary. You could be using other subdivision or municipal boundaries or whatever, and it doesn't appear that was necessarily the driving force behind selecting the precincts that ultimately made up that. The route through Rapides Parish, for instance, but
and I understand that, and I think what you have to look at is whenever all these different things, and y'all know the criteria much better than I do, but when they're all being weighted
right
by the court, they're all looked at and carry a certain amount of weight. What I think we had to factor into drawing this map was the guardrails of what we needed to do in order to create 2 majority black districts. And so
but I think you hit on. I mean, that's the difficult task at hand.
It's a difficult thing to do.
How do you make your best effort at complying with the court's recommendation?
Yeah.
Oh, I see you have demonstrative tools there with you, but I think that's the difficulty is how do you achieve that task while avoiding gerrymandering, while avoiding all the other principles that have to be utilized and are supposed to be utilized first as you begin to draft these. And so I think it just kind of highlights the difficulty in doing so. And I appreciate your effort at trying to achieve it, though.
That's right. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
Thanks,
But you
Senator.
can still go ahead and use your.
Oh. I'll set them here in case you need to look at
Okay,
it further.
Okay. All right. The board is clear from the senators. I have a few cards I'd like to get to. The first, we have two white cards here from fellow senators, Senator Talbot and Senator Mills. Would you all like to speak, Senator Talbot, Senator Mills?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and appreciate the patience with us.
Senator,
And I have
just-
not spent a lot of time
Senator,
on this.
introduce yourself if you don't mind. We all know you, but maybe everyone else watching online does not.
Thank you, and I'm Senator Robert Mills, Senate District 36. And I was looking at this map for the first time and was concerned about the incursion into Senate District 36 of a new congressperson. And, you know, obviously we get along in North Louisiana with Congressman Letlow and Congressman Johnson. We surely have our favorite of those, but that's personal, both highly qualified. But Bossier Parish is split in this, and it concerned me when I looked at it at first that Congressman Johnson, now currently serving as a congressman for the 4th District, had been drawn out of the district, but in fact his current home is within a couple of miles of the line, and he's in this district, but that's his current home. And of course quite a bit of Bossier Parish and Mrs. Johnson's home and family in Webster Parish are drawn out into the other districts. So it did seem a bit intrusive that we've taken quite a bit of what has been historically Congressional District 4, represented so well by Congressman Mike Johnson, and brought in current congressman from District 5, and it just change is always uncomfortable, and I just wanted to express my opinion that I feel like in representing District 36, I would object to this map.
All right, Senator, thank you. Senator Talbot, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. I'm Kirk Talbot. I'm a state senator from District 10, which is East Jefferson Parish. And I don't want to be redundant, but I just want to point out in my area, you know, for the first time I've ever seen, you know, we're taking North Kenner and cracking East Jefferson and putting it in, I guess it'd be District 2. And then you have, I guess what concerns me is that the continuity of communities seem to be gone out the window with this map. I mean, you have Lakeview, parts of Mid-City and the uptown area around Audubon in District 1, which is a very conservative district. And then you take out the very conservative areas of North Kenner, which is a lot of folks, and put it in with District 2, and it, you know, that to me makes no sense. And I won't beat a dead horse, but I just want to point out that, you know, looking at this map, it becomes clearer and clearer to me that is that my cue? Is that
Get the hook.
I got it. So that being said, I'd just like to say it just there's no community continuity in my area of interest. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any, but I appreciate you giving us the time.
All right. I don't see any questions on the board. Thank y'all for your time being here today and
Thank you.
and helping us to better understand your areas. Okay, I've got some cards in support here. Wishing to speak, Chico Yancey from Vote, wishing to speak. And J. Frankie Hires, present, would like to speak as well. So if y'all would like to both come to the table.
Good afternoon. My name is Frankie Hires from Jefferson Parish. I'm traveling for, I believe, the 7th or 8th occasion on this effort. Principled representation, it might matter, right? That's why we end up here. I was just over at the other room speaking to this a bit. Jefferson Parish with 440,000 citizens, Baton Rouge with over 456,000, would have been the second, third largest states in this union when we first enumerated. And you don't have to wait 10 years. You have to do it within 10 years. Though in 1920 we failed at the federal level. Is there a union if you fail to do what you're obliged to do? Has a contract been nullified? I don't know. You don't want to address that here. But you don't have to wait 10 years to correct for this. That's for sure. The Constitution's clear about that. It's within 10 years that you must do this again. That being said, we've all sworn an oath to defend the Constitution, support the Constitution, the oath of affirmation, Article 6, right? I did as a census worker. When it comes to trying to deal with this issue of minorities, it's a floating thing, right? This is changing all the time. Black folk are going to double their population in the next predicted 20 years by the census figures. They'll go from 13 to 15% of the national population. The demographic is going to increase by the greatest margin, and trust, non-Hispanic white folk, right here, we're the only ones losing. We've topped out. We're opting in with the other races because 2 or more races are going to 400% growth. 400% growth for 2 or more races. What happens when one of those people decides to define themselves as black? What's going to happen to your apportionment then? Your districting then? You see, in questions of power, the distribution of power, as a Jeffersonian Republican, Thomas Jefferson said this: "Let no more be heard about a confidence in man." I don't have to count on you to do the right thing. I don't have to count on you to be fair or equitable or any other such idealistic notion. He said to bind them down from mischief by the chains of a constitution. But if we don't comprehend the document, or what the very fundamental words say, representatives and direct taxes, put a pin in the latter one because I'm sure none of you know what direct taxes are, but direct taxes and representatives are to be apportioned among the several states according to the respective numbers. And if you understand Article 4, Section 4, we're obliged that at the state level. We surrendered this in 1842. On June 25th, as a matter of fact, next Saturday, a week from tomorrow, will mark the 180th anniversary since John Tyler signed away principled representation and the work of the 27th Congress. So March 4th, 1843, when that 28th Congress is seated, you can no longer, constitutionally speaking, get much done. And what ends up happening, right? Secession, abolition, a costly civil war, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, Robert Barron's to prohibition, suffrage, prohibition's repeal. Y'all seen this pendulum? It's feeling like 1977 to me right now. We rationed gas back in 1970. Some of you might remember that. I was in California. Trust me, we knew about it, right? What makes up a minority and how we're going to resolve these things requires some considerations of the principles that guide for this. When that first bill was passed in 1792, narrowly by 1 seat in one chamber and 2 in the other, they had no principles at all for explaining the outcome. They came to just and tolerable results, could not be objected to from the North, from the South, from industrial to agrarian. And if it had been obtained by any means prescribed within the Constitution, it had been fine. Jefferson found that it had not because it provided for 2 ratios of representation. It's amazing how when I'm sitting in these special sessions, none of you, not one person, not the representatives, nobody wants to see their parish or their community dissected. But 55 plus parishes serve more than one master. The representative does at the state level. We've got no sense of what it means to have principled representation because it's been 180 years since we knew what it meant. Republican form, you're guaranteed it at the state level. That's why I've been to these meetings. You all are supposed to take a heads up on this. You're supposed to go look into it. I can't find anybody because nobody's coming to me and asking me afterwards. Polly won't come see me. She tried to redistrict me out of my district. That's the best y'all could do. It's just silly. So he goes on to say, if you permit the large fraction of one parish or one state to choose a representative for one of the smaller fractions in another state or another parish, you take from the latter its election. And this constitutes real representation and substitute a virtual representation of a disenfranchised fraction. And the tendency of the doctrine of virtual representation, anybody know what the doctrine of virtual representation refers to? Any of y'all? That's the Revolutionary War. No taxation without representation. But nobody knows what direct taxes are. Nobody knows what the principles of indirect taxation are. Jefferson Parish taxes West Bank 0.5% less for a hospitality industry than it does the East Bank. That defies the Constitution itself, but nobody knows what the document says. So y'all swear an oath, but it's become perfunctory. The apportionment bill that actually did pass after the veto, the first veto, George Washington's veto, to ensure that we'd have a basic divisor, principles to prescribe for future apportionments. That bill reads as such: House of Representatives shall be composed of members elected agreeably to a ratio of one member for every, at the time, 33,000. You know what our ratio is today for this, what you're doing? 776,000 people each one of those reps has got to try and speak for. I don't care who's voting for them. They're not listening to anybody. They can't. How could they? The only people any of these 6 representatives are ever going to be able to listen to is the biggest employer. And I found out it's the federal government. Vernon Parish has the biggest employer, Polk Base, Army Base, right? That's the biggest employer in the state. And you know who the next biggest employer of the state is? The state! And this isn't a place where I live I'm a Republican. And I live in a socialized state, completely socialized. The 2 biggest employers are the federal government and the state government. Anybody care for free market capitalism? There's no such thing. The only way you get to a free market is I beat you over the head and take your stuff. And that's free, kind of, I guess. Point is that principal representation matters. I need you all to consider this. I need you to establish some principles to guide for future apportionments. Consider this greatly. You've sworn an oath to do it. You've sworn an oath to actually care about the things that I'm trying to get to you. I'd appreciate it if y'all would do something about it, more than give us lip service. Look, the minority here in Louisiana isn't black people. I said this over at the other room. This is your census report. 40-something parishes, right? 40-something parishes all lose in population. The rurals are the minority. The rurals are the minority. And they've held power, more power than they were entitled to, going back to probably the formation of the state, because they could. I don't fault a shark for being a shark. But at some point, you're going to run out of food, right? So you got to figure out how to give up some of the power from the north and the west that you've had, principally. So you got 6 representatives. How about this, right? That's the minority district. So let's set aside one district to just be rural parishes. And then go ahead and let East Baton Rouge be the home for one district, Jefferson be the home for a second district, Orleans be the home for a third district, and so on down to St. Tammany and Lafayette. Now, Cato Parish would make like a 3rd black district if it was the home. But I'm not asking you to overreach or to really consider that. But 5 parishes from East Baton Rouge, Jefferson, Orleans, St. Tammany, Lafayette with 221,000 plus should not be suffering virtual representation that we got away from in the Revolutionary War. You could do better. Jefferson said this: if we find the people lacking for the enlightenment required to exercise their discretion, exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, that is. If I find them lacking for the enlightenment required to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the solution would not be to take it from them. Not you. You're just a reflection of our neglect and opportunism, right? I'm not going to take the power from you. No, he says the solution is to inform their discretion. And that is a true corrective for constitutional abuses of power. You got to inform your discretion as to why. How we empower an office of trust has to begin to matter more to all of us than who holds it. Y'all are term limited. You're gone. Before I can find out what you did wrong, you're already on to your next gig. I appreciate the time. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Hires. Mr. Yancey.
Wow. I really know now what it is to sit next to a Republican.
come and visit this committee more often. You'll never know what you might have here.
And you know, first of all, my name is Checo Yancey. I work for Vote, and I'm a former incarcerated person. And I gained my voting rights a couple of years ago, and you know, trying to be a part of the community and do the right thing. But I tell you, wow. You know, I think we're here today because the federal judge said that we need 2 minority districts, and I was really shocked when the young man said white folks are losing, and I'm saying, wow, first time I heard that. But in history is, you know, sometimes it repeats itself. What we're here to hear today, and what I'm in for, is that we get the 2 minority districts, and I hope that we would do the right thing. We had an opportunity. I've been to several of the road shows and testified, and I think my voice was not heard. I think a lot of other people's voice was not heard. But I'm here today to say that you ladies and gentlemen, you know, you hear the bills, the instruments, and you make a law, and we have to follow it. If I don't follow it, then I get in trouble and go before a judge, and then I'm mandated to follow it. Am I correct? Well, the judge has said that we need to do the right thing. And you know, somebody's district gonna get cut up, somebody's district gonna get separated. But in the end, we want to be fair. We want to make sure that we understand that everybody has an equal opportunity. A second minority district would give that opportunity in Congress to have an opportunity to have a voice, that somebody can listen to what I'm saying, or in that other district, what he's saying or she's saying. You know, we want to make sure that, ladies and gentlemen, again, let's just do the right thing. Why do we need the federal judge to tell us to do, when you read in the paper yesterday that Representative Shake Snyder and Senator Cortez got called, they went to see the judge, and the judge said, hey, either you do it, or I'm going to do it. And that's where we are. That's where we are today. And I'm asking you to take into consideration, you voted down Senator Cleo Fields, and now we got Senator Ward coming in trying to do something. And let's listen, you know, with our organization, Vote, you know, we believe in being a part of the community and giving back, you know. And I heard someone earlier talking about being bussed all over. Well, guess what? We've been bussed for years. As black people, we've been bussed out our neighborhood to other places to, you know, to make it look good or whatever. So we can't use that excuse. But we should, in the light of the law, and I've heard several committee members say in the committees, the color of the law. Let's do what the federal judge say. Let's get those 2 districts, get it done. And in my organization, what we say all the time is, no surrender, no retreat. We'll be here fighting, and I'm here. Thank you. And I'll take any questions if there are any. But thank you for allowing me to sit next to a Republican, and that was good today.
I'm sure he feels just as fortunate to sit next to a Democrat. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Yancey. Thank you. All right, we have a few other cards here in support, not wishing to speak. Edgar Cage with Together Louisiana, Ashley Shelton, the Power Coalition, Terry Landry Jr., SPLC Action Fund, and Devontae Lewis, Louisiana Budget Project. Those were in support, not wishing to speak. President in opposition, not wishing to speak, Susie Labrie. I've been practicing on that. Okay. Thank you. All right, and I believe you all have, I believe it's one letter in opposition to SB3 from Keely McGibney from One Acadiana. That's in your folder. All right, have I missed anything else? Any other emails or cards? Okay, Senator Ward, would you like to close on your bill? Senator Ward, before you close, would you be willing to take a question from President Cortez?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Ward and I have spoken offline about this, but I feel compelled to put it on the record. Yesterday during, I think it was Senator Fields' bill, the parish president from Lafayette came, as did a member of the city councils from Scott and a number of different people relative to Lafayette Parish and the dividing of Lafayette Parish. So this bill does basically the same thing. It doesn't. It's not a whole lot different in that regard in that area. And a lot has been said during this debate, and I appreciate the passion of the debate, and I'm a former civics and history teacher, so I love all of that stuff, you know. So everybody that brings a different angle to the debate, I love talking about the Revolutionary War. I always thought it a good job if I could keep the kids awake during discussion of the Revolutionary War. But Senator Ward's bill is, and I commend him, it's something different that we haven't heard. So it kind of hits people really between the eyes and kind of shakes you up and says, okay, we've seen Senator Fields' bill. We saw it in the regular previous special session. We've seen a lot of similar bills that basically took the 5th Congressional District and made it into a second black district. This one appears to be something that's just a little different than all of those. While it does that, it does shake up a few things. It shakes up certainly the 3rd, which I currently reside in. That now I think I reside now in the 4th, and if I believe, and the 3rd moves to the coast a little further, just south to the coast. So it does create some confusion. I grant that. This would not be a bill that I would be willing to support, because doing the right thing is voting your constituency. Following a judge's order is different in this, and I think there's been a lot of confusion with regards to the federal judge's order, because I've watched many times and I've seen, and I'm going to tell, if you will give me the latitude, I want to tell a quick story. I saw a courtroom. Now, I wasn't in the courtroom at the time. I saw a courtroom where there was I was told by my clerk of court that there was a jury selection, and they asked a potential juror for the murder trial. They said, would you be willing to be, willing to listen to all of the evidence before you made a decision? And he said, yes, I would. He said, or do you have any preconceived notions? And he said, if the police arrested him, he's guilty. And then I've also seen when people get convicted of murder at the district court, and we don't immediately say hang them or shoot them or put them in the electric chair. We say they're on appeal. They go to a second court. And then if they get, the same ruling, we don't say immediately run over there and before the 20th of next month you got to have them in the electric chair. We say let it play out to the Supreme Court. In fact, we passed bills recently, and I know Senator Foyle and I were in the House at the time when we passed a bill out of House Appropriations to give a man who came to the table who had spent some 30-something years in jail, and he had been released because they found DNA evidence to prove that he was not guilty. And so we put into law, I think, $150,000 to make up for the number of years he spent in jail. So with that, I'm going to say that the judge that I did go in front of yesterday to ask for more time, because I truly do believe that this is too short a period of time, and she asked me on the record, will you do everything you can to expedite the process? To which I said, I am one vote out of 143, but I will do what I can, Judge, to expedite the process. And so but I did also mention to her and to the court that we are bound by the Constitution, the statutes, and the rules of the Senate and the rules of the House and the joint rules of the legislature. And I mentioned to him that one of the rules of the House is it requires a 2/3 vote to suspend those rules. The Senate is not under that same hurdle, we can suspend with a majority of those present and voting. So we can move around and do business a little quicker than the House can. They take a little longer to maneuver. This is the last instrument that is in front of this committee, and effectively the last instrument that would be in front of the Senate, absent of the House sending us an instrument to deal with. My understanding is the House has taken up their instruments today. I understand. I just spoke to someone in the House. They're going to take up another instrument that apparently has got some amendments being proposed to it tomorrow. And so at this point in time, absent of us moving forward a bill, we have no more business in the Senate. And so, again, I'm going to circle back to my very first statement. I don't like the bill in the current form. I wouldn't vote for the bill in the current form. I'm not a member of this committee other than ex officio, but I know that in talking to Senator Ward, he knows I don't like the elements that I can't explain to my district that I could vote for it on final passage. But I do also understand in a process that if this bill gets deferred in this committee, there is no instrument in the Senate. That being said, even if the bill were amended to where he could get 20 votes on his instrument, there's no guarantee the House would pass it or even hear it or even suspend the rules to put it in committee. So we find ourselves a little bit at a quagmire, but I'm going to say that I appreciate Senator Ward bringing the instrument, at least in an attempt to give something different that hasn't been the same, I'm going to say, retread of the same arguments, and to defer bills or not defer bills that you've already deferred. The last thing I'll say is that yesterday at the end of the courtroom, wasn't a trial, I guess, it was just a hearing, when I was relieved and I could have left, I stayed, and the judge did tell both the plaintiffs and the defendants that she was ordering them to put together maps, remedial maps. The lawyers. She told the lawyers, go put together remedial maps and get them back to me as soon as possible. Now, I have to say, on the one hand, I take offense in that, and I don't take personal offense, by the way. I only take the offense that the court is now saying the legislature is doing nothing, is going to do nothing, and I know that in advance, so it's almost like the judge has said, I've predetermined the outcome and I'm going to pick the map I want to pick anyway. So that just came down, and I wanted to make you all aware that I just got a notification that they are required to have those maps by June 22nd to the court. And they'll have an opportunity to, I guess, debate on either side the merits of the map. And so to suggest that somehow if his map doesn't get passed or his map has been deferred, your map's not been taken up, if the House doesn't have a map, there's going to be a map. And that's the first thing I'll say. There's going to be a map with 2 minority districts. So for anybody who wants 2 minority districts to be in the map, there's going to be one. Secondly, it hasn't been totally adjudicated, and the merits have not been heard yet, and they're going to at some point. And I don't know which side's going to be right or wrong. And I said on the very last day of this first special session, I think I recall saying that we overrode the governor's veto, and I said the governor and the executive branch opposed this map that the legislature had put forward. As a co-equal branch, it had a right to do that. And the courts, the other third branch, was going to weigh in. At the time, I didn't think it would be the federal courts, and didn't know, thought it might be the state courts, but it could have well been the federal courts. And while they are a different level, and it's really a federalism issue more so than 3 branches of government, but I think my point still holds that 2 of the 3 branches are going to decide if that first map was legal and constitutional. Now, note, I don't believe any judge can tell an elected official that they have to come in here and do a particular thing. We're trying to do something, no more so than we could legislate that a state district judge call a case on a particular day, or that we tell the Secretary of the Department of Transportation he has to let a contract on a particular day. They execute the law, we don't. We make the law, they don't. And the way we make it is through our process of the Constitution, the statutes, and the rules of our body. And so with that, I'm just going to say I don't have a vote in this committee. But as a Senate, if this bill were to be reported to the full Senate, then at least there would be still opportunity to debate, if and only if the House would move an instrument out of their committee so that we know that they would at least be receptive of a Senate instrument if it got to them, that they would be willing to suspend the rules. Other than that, anything other than that today, we have done our business here in the Senate, and we are sitting in the proverbial bullpen waiting for the House to play ball. So I know that was a little long-winded, Madam Chair, but I wanted to get everything on the record. A, that this bill is not something that I could go back home and explaining, voting for on final passage, but I know Senator Ward's intent, and he said it earlier, was to work with everybody to attempt to make it into a posture that some people could vote for, and then also to state that it is only a backup plan if on final jurisdiction the other map were to be ruled unconstitutional. So with that, as I tell you always, do the right thing, and the right thing is to represent your people from back home. And so thank you for the deference.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your words and kind of catching everybody up to speed and up to date. So very well said. All right, Senator Ward, to close on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, look, y'all have been at this for a very long time. I appreciate the opportunity to present the bill. I think if you could just keep a couple of things in mind as we move forward with the vote, however that turns out. One of the things that I think stuck out to me the most in terms of talking about the map itself was, did it break up community of interest, and were parishes or towns or cities going to have multiple congressmen? And what I would like to say to that is, my current Senate district, out of the 9 parishes I represent currently from the 2011 map, 6 of those 9 parishes have multiple congressional members for their representation. 6 of the 9. So that's not an uncommon thing. That's something that happens. It's going to happen somewhere in the state. Under our current districts, it just so happens that it's the region that I'm from. So that is one thing to keep in mind. The other thing that we talk about a lot in this building is, and the President alluded to it just a few minutes ago, there's 3 branches of government. We're the legislative branch. All we're asking for with this particular bill is to put something in place that we chose together as a body, in case it's not a guarantee, but in case once the judicial process runs its course, and if the map that we already passed is struck down, that this would take effect. Now, for myself, as somebody that practices law, whenever you go in front of a judge, we ask for similar things all the time. And what we do is, you go into court, and whether it be a motion or some sort of hearing or anything, if they're going to rule on it and make a judgment, you say, Judge, this is what I really want. But if you're not inclined to do that, how about this? And I really think that that's what we're doing here. But we're having a say in it. Because if we don't move forward and put this on the floor in a way that we can at least attempt to continue to build consensus around something, then we take ourselves out of the equation completely, and we rely solely on the judicial system to make that decision. So all I ask today is that you give it a fair shot, and you give us the opportunity to continue to try and build consensus around something. I don't know that if we find out that the House is going to make it clear that they are not going to build or work with us to build a consensus around something, I don't know that we need to move forward with it. But if we don't move forward with this instrument today, we'll never have that opportunity to know.
All right, thank you, Senator Tarver.
Senator Ward, I'm looking at your bill. There's a lot to be desired about your bill. But I know you brought the bill in good faith. And I think that you really want to do the right thing. I look at the minority districts and around 52%. It need to be a little higher. I know you're open to amendments on the floor. And I think that we can do something to make this bill and show good faith to the people of Louisiana, and also basically to the people of Louisiana. That is what we're concerned about. I know we need to get something out of here, so if we don't get anything out of here, we'll be gone today. And the House might get something out of committee. I don't really know. But I can't be concerned about the House. I got to be fair myself. And I think that you have a pretty good bill. I like North Louisiana, but I have to look at the whole state as a whole. You could increase a little bit and a little bit basically in the minority community, the two districts that you have. So I'm going to make a motion to report this bill favorable.
Yeah, I was just checking to see if we had no amendments on this bill, right?
No.
Okay, Senator Alain.
I cannot go along with reporting this bill favorably, but I do believe that we need to keep an instrument alive, at least in the interim. So I'm going to make a substitute motion that we report this bill with no action.
Okay. All right, so Senator Tarver made a motion to report the bill favorable. Senator Alain made a motion to report it with no action, a substitute motion. I will make a substitute motion. Can I do a substitute on a substitute?
Nope.
All right. Okay. All right, so Senator Alain, the Senator Alain has moved that we report the bill without action. So a vote yes would be to do so. That would send the bill to the floor. A vote no would have us go back to the original motion. Okay, so, all right, so let me just repeat again. So a vote yes would send the bill to the floor with no action. A vote no would allow us to go back to the original motion. Let's see.
We ready?
All right, I'm sorry. I'll put all that back on the record. So we were trying to make sure that everybody understands what the motion is.
Thank you.
All right, why do we always get all the interesting motions here? All right. Okay, so again, just for the record, Senator Allen, did you want to say something else? No? Okay. Okay, I'll take you off then. Are you on? No. All right. Okay. Okay, so Senator Allen's substitute motion is to report the bill without action, which would send the bill to the floor. So a vote yes would be to report it with no action and send it to the floor. A vote no will take us back to the earlier motion, and I'll explain that if we get that to that point. Okay? So if you will, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Milligan? No. Senator Allen? Yes. Senator Foyle? Yes. Senator Harris? Yes. Senator Price? Yes. Senator Reese? No. Senator Tarver? Yes. Senator Womack? No. Senator Hewitt?
No.
No. That is 5 yeas and 4 nays.
Okay. So that bill gets reported without action.